Hi, I'm Sophie, and this story will stay with you. It's about birthdays, betrayal, and the moment a woman finally stood up to the very people who should have stood beside her. Let me introduce you to Claire. She's 30, sharp as a tack, and a self-made businesswoman who owns 3 thriving pizzerias in her hometown. That's right, 3. She built her dream from scratch, starting with a tiny storefront that could barely fit 4 tables. Now, she's got loyal customers who line up for her signature Claire Special, a full staff, and wood-fired ovens that gleam like brand new Cadillacs. So when her 30th birthday rolled around, Claire wanted to celebrate, not with a keg and a plastic cake, but with something meaningful. She decided to throw a classy dinner at her flagship restaurant. She closed it for the night, hired a catering team so she wouldn't have to lift a finger, and decorated every inch herself. String lights, candles, the works. She even splurged on a black designer dress that made her feel like $1,000,000. She invited about 20 guests, close friends, her parents Frank and Diane, her younger brother Ethan, 26, and sister Chloe, 24. The event was set for 7 p.m. on a Saturday. Claire showed up early at 5 to check every last detail. Her best friend Melissa, the kind of ride or die you hope to have in your corner, arrived early to help. "This looks amazing," she said, hugging Claire. "Your parents are going to be so proud." And that moment, it meant something. Because even though Claire had succeeded far beyond what most people dream of, her parents' approval still mattered. By 7 p.m., guests started rolling in. Her Uncle Greg and Aunt Marlene arrived first, followed by cousins and old friends. The atmosphere was warm, festive, full of clinking glasses and heartfelt toasts. Everyone was congratulating Claire on her success, her place, her journey. But by 7:15, Claire started glancing at the door. By 7:30, she was checking her phone. Still no sign of her parents. No Ethan, no Chloe. That was strange. Her mom was the kind of person who showed up 15 minutes early to everything. This wasn't like them. She called her dad, straight to voicemail. "Hey, Dad, just wondering where you guys are. The party's already started. Call me back." Still trying to keep her cool, she forced a smile and mingled with guests. But when Aunt Marlene leaned in and whispered, "Where are your parents?" Claire could only shrug. "Traffic, maybe," she offered. Though deep down, she knew something wasn't right. By 8 p.m., anxiety had replaced excitement. Claire slipped away from her own birthday party and ducked into the bathroom, clutching her phone with sweaty hands. She called her mom. No answer. Ethan? Voicemail. Chloe? Nothing. Her texts got more frantic. "Where are you guys? Everyone's asking." "Please call me." "Mom, I'm worried. Are you okay?" Silence. At this point, Claire's imagination ran wild. What if they'd been in a car accident? What if something terrible had happened? She returned to the party, but everything felt surreal, like she was watching someone else's night unfold. That's when a man in a delivery uniform walked into the restaurant. "Are you Claire?" he asked. She nodded. "I have a delivery for you. Someone asked me to bring this to your party." He handed her a neatly wrapped silver box, tied with a big white bow. It felt suspiciously light, almost empty. "Maybe it's from your parents," Melissa said, with a hopeful grin. Everyone gathered around as Claire opened it, heart racing. Inside the shiny wrapping was a plain white cardboard box. She lifted the lid. It was completely empty. Silence fell. You could hear a pin drop. Claire stared into the box, confused, then flipped it upside down. Nothing. No card, no message, no gift, just emptiness. Then her phone rang. "Mom," the screen flashed. Finally. Claire stepped outside to answer, not yet knowing the emotional ambush that was waiting on the other end. And that, my friend, is where everything changed. I stood there outside my own birthday party, clutching the phone like it was the only thing holding me upright. The moment I heard her voice, I expected some kind of apology, or at least an explanation. But instead, my mother's voice came through clear and sharp. "Did you get our gift?" I blinked, stunned. "You mean the empty box?" "Oh, yes," she said with a tone so smug it made my skin crawl. "That was from us. The perfect gift for someone who does nothing for her family." My knees nearly buckled. I had to lean against the brick wall of the building just to keep standing. "Wait, what?" My voice was barely a whisper. "I don't understand." Then came the laugh, but it wasn't warm or amused. It was cold, sharp, and laced with cruelty. "Oh, Claire," she said, "I think you understand perfectly. Remember dinner last month?" And in an instant, I did. We were at a casual Italian place, passing around plates of garlic bread, when my parents casually dropped a bombshell. They wanted me to pay for a 2-week family vacation to Mexico. Not just a getaway for 2, but for all 4 of them: my mom, Dad, Ethan, and Chloe. All in, it would have cost around $15,000. At the time, I'd told them the truth. Business was booming, sure, but I was in the middle of expanding. I had just signed a lease for a 4th pizzeria, was ordering $20,000 worth of new ovens, and remodeling a space downtown. My cash flow was stretched thin. I told them I could contribute later, maybe at Christmas, and even go with them then. Apparently, that wasn't good enough. "You said no," my mom snapped. "You said your precious business was more important than your family." "That's not what I said," I replied, my voice trembling. "I said I needed a few months. I said I'd help when I could." "Well, we decided to give you a little taste of your own medicine," she said. "How did it feel, Claire? Standing in front of all your guests, opening that box, expecting something meaningful, and getting nothing?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Tears blurred my vision as I stared out into the dark parking lot. "You humiliated me," I said, choking on the words. "You planned this? You did this to me on purpose? On my birthday?" "Consider it a lesson," she replied, ice in her voice. "Maybe now you'll think twice before putting yourself above the people who matter most." I could barely speak, but before I could hang up, she delivered one last blow. "We're not done yet," she said. "My birthday's in 2 weeks, and I'm expecting a real gift this time, something that shows you've learned your lesson." I was silent. She continued, "$15,000 should do it. That's what the trip costs. And I already told my friends that you're going to surprise me with it at dinner." It felt like all the air had been sucked from my lungs. "You want me to pay for the trip now?" I asked. "After what you just did." She didn't miss a beat. "I suggest you make it right, Claire. Don't disappoint us again." Then she hung up. I stood there, frozen, phone still pressed to my ear, the echo of her voice rattling in my bones. My mother, my own mother, had not only skipped my 30th birthday, she'd engineered a public humiliation, and still expected me to write a $15,000 check, as if nothing had happened. I didn't walk back into the restaurant right away. I just stood in the cold evening air, trying to collect myself. My makeup was ruined, my heart was pounding, and my vision was fogged with tears. I felt like I was watching my life unravel in slow motion. Eventually, I went back inside. The second I walked through the door, the room fell quiet. Melissa rushed over. "What happened?" she whispered. "You look pale." I forced a smile, the kind you give when you're on the verge of collapse. "Oh, family emergency," I lied. "They're not coming." But everyone could see it in my face, and that box, the empty box, sat on the table like a ghost. Back inside the restaurant, I tried to compose myself. I wiped away the tears, reapplied a hint of lip gloss with shaking hands, and put on my best I'm fine face. But I wasn't fooling anyone. Melissa rushed over the second I walked in. "Claire, what happened? You look terrible." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. My Uncle Greg, bless him, gave me a worried look. "Is everything okay with your family?" he asked gently. I nodded too quickly. Yeah, they just had to deal with something last minute. They send their apologies." Nobody bought it. My eyes were still puffy, my hands still trembling. And there, on the table like a cruel joke, sat that empty silver box. I couldn't stop glancing at it, like it was mocking me. The mood shifted. People began checking their watches, grabbing their coats, mumbling about early meetings or needing to walk the dog. The cozy, happy vibe I'd worked so hard to create had completely evaporated. Within an hour, the restaurant was empty, except for Melissa. She waited until the last guest had left before turning to me. "Claire," she said, her voice firm, "tell me the truth. What happened?" So I did. I told her everything about the phone call, the empty box, the $15,000 vacation they'd demanded. I laid it all out, from the sarcastic digs to the emotional blackmail. Melissa sat there, her mouth open. "They did all this because you wouldn't drop 15 grand on a beach trip?" "Apparently," I muttered, staring down at the untouched birthday cake. "That's insane," she said. "And cruel. I can't believe your mom would say you do nothing for your family. Claire, you've been supporting them for years." I nodded slowly. "I know," but she didn't just say it. She said it in front of all of her friends. She wants me to make it up to her by paying for the same vacation I said I couldn't afford yet. Melissa was fuming. "After publicly humiliating you, she expects a gift?" I laughed bitterly. She said it would show I've learned my lesson. The silence that followed was heavy. I walked around the restaurant in a daze, blowing out the candles and boxing up leftover cannoli and mini pizzas. Melissa helped, but we barely spoke. I was still trying to process it all. How a birthday I'd looked forward to for months had become a night I'd remember for all the wrong reasons. Later, when I got home, I finally let it out. I sat on the couch in my apartment, still wearing that black dress, and sobbed into a kitchen towel because I didn't have tissues nearby. The makeup I'd so carefully applied was now smeared across my face, and the words kept echoing in my mind. The perfect gift for someone who does nothing for her family. That was the real kicker, because I'd done everything for them. I paid my parents' mortgage, $1,800 every month. I covered their electric, gas, and water bills, another couple hundred right there. I paid for Ethan's car insurance, $180 a month. Chloe's rent, that was $950 I'd been covering for over a year. Groceries, credit cards, doctor visits, it all came from me. Quietly, consistently, without being asked twice. And yet, an empty box. That night, something inside me broke. Not from pain, though that was part of it, but from clarity. I'd been holding up an entire household on my shoulders while chasing my own dreams, and it was still never enough. They didn't just take me for granted. They'd expected it. Well, not anymore. The next morning, I woke up with puffy eyes and a clear mind. I brewed a pot of coffee, sat down at my kitchen table, and logged into my banking app. One by one, I canceled every automatic payment. Mortgage, canceled. Electric, canceled. Gas, canceled. Water, canceled. Ethan's car insurance, canceled. Chloe's rent, canceled. With every click, it felt like I was cutting invisible strings that had been pulling me in every direction for far too long. It wasn't revenge, it was freedom, and I wasn't done yet. By the time I had the last receipt sorted and the last canceled payment confirmed, it was close to noon. My apartment was a mess. Papers everywhere, bank statements stacked in piles. But my heart had never felt so clear. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was deciding. All that morning, I kept glancing at the empty silver box that was still sitting on my kitchen counter. It had followed me home like a bad memory, and now it was about to serve a new purpose. If my mother thought I did nothing for the family, I was going to show her what nothing really looked like. I pulled out a clean manila folder and began placing photocopies of each receipt inside. I made sure everything was in order: utilities, mortgage payments, rent, insurance, medical bills, even the grocery store totals from the last 2 holiday seasons. Every dollar I'd quietly handed over out of love, loyalty, and obligation was now documented. I packed it all into the same box they'd sent me. Yes, the very one they used to humiliate me on my birthday. It still had the silver wrapping, the satin ribbon. But this time, it would be a gift with substance, and I wasn't going to wait until Christmas. 2 weeks later, right on cue, my mom sent a group text. "Birthday dinner's Saturday at 6. Can't wait to see what surprise Claire has planned." The nerve. I replied with a short, sweet message. "Don't worry, Mom, I have the perfect gift for you." On Saturday, I didn't get dressed up. I didn't go to their dinner. I didn't even leave my apartment. Instead, I called a same-day courier service and gave them one simple instruction: deliver the box to my parents' house at exactly 6 p.m. Inside, on top of the receipts, I placed a handwritten note. "Since you believe I've done nothing for the family, I thought you'd appreciate seeing what that nothing really looks like. As of 2 weeks ago, I have canceled every payment I've been making on your behalf. No more mortgage help, no more bills, no more rent for Ethan and Chloe. You're on your own now. Happy birthday. Claire." At 6:45 p.m., I got the delivery confirmation, and then the call started. My phone lit up with messages from my mom, my dad, even Chloe and Ethan. One after the other, voicemails full of shock and outrage. But I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I made myself a cup of hot cocoa, pulled up Netflix, and spent the night watching feel-good holiday movies. It was the calmest birthday-related evening I'd had in years, and it wasn't even my birthday. That night, I turned my phone off. I didn't want their noise. I wanted peace. And for the first time, I had it. The stack of receipts was taller than I expected. Utility bills, insurance payments, medical costs, grocery runs, rent, mortgage. It went on and on. I stared at the pile for a long time. I honestly couldn't believe how much I'd given, how much I'd poured into a family that now accused me of doing nothing. It felt poetic, in a way. They gave me an empty box, and I filled it with the truth. For the next 2 weeks, I walked with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. My stress level dropped, my sleep improved. I started waking up excited about life again. My restaurants were thriving, and with no more monthly drains into the family black hole, I had the cash flow to push forward on my 4th location. I was moving faster than planned, like someone had finally cut the anchor off my leg. Then, 2 days before my mother's birthday, she texted, "Claire, I hope you've been thinking about what we discussed. I'm expecting you to make things right. My birthday dinner is Saturday at 6 p.m. I've told all my friends you have a special surprise planned." I read it 3 times before I laughed out loud, the kind of laugh that bubbles up when you realize someone really, truly thinks they still have power over you. She thought she'd broken me with that empty box. Instead, she'd given me a reason to set myself free. I texted back one line, "Don't worry, Mom, I have the perfect gift for you." Saturday afternoon, I packed the box carefully. I placed every receipt, every copied bill, neatly into folders. On top, I laid a handwritten note. "Since you think I do nothing for this family, I thought I'd show you what nothing looks like." As of 2 weeks ago, I canceled all automatic payments to you, Ethan, and Chloe. No more mortgage, no more utilities, no more rent, no more car insurance. You're on your own now. Happy birthday. Claire. At exactly 6 p.m., the courier dropped it off at their house, right on time for her big dinner. Meanwhile, I was back home in pajamas, curled up on the couch with a mug of hot chocolate and a baking competition on Netflix. I hadn't felt this content in years. At 6:45, I got the delivery confirmation. 10 minutes later, my phone started blowing up. Call after call, text after text. First my mom, then my dad, then Ethan, then Chloe. By 7:30, it was constant. My screen kept lighting up like a fireworks show, buzzing across the coffee table every few seconds. But I didn't read a single message. I didn't answer one call. I just turned the phone face down and pressed play on the next episode. Around 10 p.m., I finally picked up the phone out of curiosity. 43 missed calls, 67 unread messages. I deleted them all without opening a single one. Then I turned my phone off entirely, and I slept like a rock. The next morning, I turned it back on and, surprise, 15 more missed calls and 28 more messages. Gone. Deleted again. Around noon, the phone rang again. This time, I answered. "Hello, Mom," I said calmly. Her voice was shaking, thick with tears. "Claire, how could you do this to me? How could you be so cruel?" I took a sip of my coffee and leaned back. "What do you mean?" "That box," she cried. "That awful box you sent me. I opened it in front of all my friends. I was humiliated." "Oh," I said. "You mean the one filled with receipts showing how much I've supported you over the past 2 years?" "That's not the point," she snapped. "I told everyone you were surprising me with something special, and instead, I opened that in front of a room full of people. Do you have any idea how that made me look?" I paused for a moment and smiled to myself. "Well, Mom, now you know how I felt on my birthday." And for once, she had no snappy reply, just silence. And in that silence, I found peace. "She opened it at the dinner table," my mother sobbed. "Right there, in front of everyone. All those papers just spilled out. Mortgage statements, utility bills, credit card receipts, everything." I didn't say anything. "They started asking questions," she continued, her voice cracking. "They wanted to know why you were paying our mortgage. Some of them were at your birthday party. They remembered we didn't show up. They remembered you opening that empty box. They put 2 and 2 together." I let a quiet smile stretch across my face. "That must have been awkward for you." There was a beat of silence. Then her voice hardened. "Claire, you can't do this to us. We're family. You have to help us." I set my coffee mug down gently. "Actually, I don't." "What do you mean?" "You made it perfectly clear that you think I do nothing for the family. So I decided to finally live up to that expectation. I'm doing exactly what you asked. Nothing. Isn't that what you wanted?" "We didn't mean it like that," she cried. "We were just upset about the vacation." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Well, now I'm upset too, about being humiliated at my own birthday party. Funny how that works. Claire, please, we're sorry. We made a mistake, but you can't just cut us off like this. Watch me." "But the mortgage," she stammered. "We can't afford the house without your help." I leaned back in my chair. "That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem." She broke down completely. "Please, Claire, we'll do anything. We'll apologize, publicly. We'll tell everyone we were wrong. Just please don't do this." I paused, letting her words hang in the air like smoke after a fire. "It's too late, Mom. You had your chance to treat me with respect. Instead, you chose to shame me. So now you get to live with the consequences." "But we're family." "Number family doesn't treat each other like that," I'm done. I ended the call and, without hesitation, blocked her number. Then I blocked my father, then Ethan, then Chloe. I thought I'd feel guilt, but what I felt instead was relief. A few days later, I was in my office at my main pizzeria, catching up on payroll and vendor invoices, when my manager knocked on the door. "Claire, your brother's here, and he's not happy." "Of course." "Let him in," I said, sighing, "but stay close, just in case." Ethan burst through the door like a storm. His face was red, his eyes wild. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Claire, what the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped. "You need to give me money for rent. Right now, my landlord is threatening to evict me." I didn't even look up from my spreadsheet. "That sounds like a personal problem." "A personal problem? Are you kidding me? You've been paying my rent for over a year. You can't just stop." "Actually, I can, and I did." He started pacing the room like a caged animal. "This is insane. I can't afford to live on my own. I need that money." "Then maybe," I said calmly, "you should get a better job, or a second one, or learn how to budget like the rest of us." "Don't talk to me like I'm some child." I finally looked up and locked eyes with him. "Then stop acting like one. You're 26, Ethan. Grow up." He stopped pacing and glared at me. "I can't believe you're doing this to your own family. What happened to you?" I stood up and stepped closer. "What happened to me? You humiliated me, all of you did, on my birthday, because I wouldn't drop $15,000 on a vacation. That's what happened. That was Mom's idea, not mine. And yet, you went along with it. You didn't call, you didn't text, you didn't show up, you didn't even say sorry." He ran his hands through his hair, clearly unraveling. "Okay, maybe that was wrong, but this is too far. I'm going to lose my apartment." "Then move back in with Mom and Dad," I shrugged. "I'm sure they'll be thrilled." "You don't understand," he snapped. "Without your money, they can barely afford the house. There's no room for me and Chloe." I raised my eyebrows. "Sounds like the four of you have some tough choices to make." Because I wasn't one of them anymore. Ethan completely lost it. His face went red, his fists clenched, and before I could react, he screamed and tried to swipe everything off my desk in one wild, childish tantrum. Pens flew, papers fluttered. My laptop nearly hit the floor. Without even flinching, I reached beneath the desk and pressed the panic button. Seconds later, my security guards stormed in. "Get him out of here," I said, my voice calm and cold. "And don't let any of my family members into this building again." As they dragged him out, Ethan thrashed and yelled, "This isn't over, Claire. You can't do this to us." But he was wrong. It was over. At least, for me. Over the next few weeks, Chloe tried a different strategy. Since I'd blocked her number, she started texting me from random ones. Different area codes, burner lines, maybe friends' phones. The tone shifted day by day. First, it was rage. "You're cruel. You're tearing this family apart." Then, guilt. "Claire, I'm being evicted next week. I never did anything to hurt you. Why are you punishing me for Mom's mistakes?" And finally, desperation. "Please don't abandon me. I'm your little sister. Please." I didn't reply. I didn't even open most of them. If she wanted help, she could do what millions of Americans do every day, get a job and stand on her own 2 feet. I had done it, and I'd done it while supporting 4 other adults. Now, I was finally supporting the one person I had been neglecting for far too long. Myself. The months rolled on, and I poured my heart into my work. That 4th pizzeria opened, running strong. Business was booming. Without the family expenses bleeding me dry, I was finally able to do something unheard of. Take vacations, real ones, beach trips, wine weekends in Napa. I even went hiking in Colorado. Things that used to feel like luxuries suddenly became normal. I heard from Aunt Marlene, who still tried to play the role of family mediator, that Ethan and Chloe had both moved back in with my parents, all four of them under one roof again. My dad had picked up a part-time handyman job. My mom was working the checkout line at a grocery store. Ethan was doing some construction, and Chloe finally landed a call center position. They were scraping by, just barely making their mortgage payments. The Mexico vacation? Long forgotten, Marlene suggested more than once that maybe enough time had passed, that maybe, just maybe, it was time to forgive and move forward. But I couldn't, not yet, because I hadn't forgotten, and I certainly hadn't healed. About 6 months after the birthday disaster, I was at my newest location, helping manage the evening rush, when I saw her, my mother, standing outside the front window. She didn't come in. She just stood there, watching. She looked different, older. Her face was thinner, hair grayer, shoulders slumped like she was carrying invisible bricks. She didn't knock, didn't wave. After a few minutes, she turned and walked away. That scene repeated itself several times in the months that followed. I'd spot her outside one of my restaurants, just standing there like a ghost from a past I was trying to forget. She never came inside, never tried to speak. I think she was hoping I'd see her, feel guilty, and go out to her. But I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. A full year passed since that awful birthday. And honestly, I was thriving. I'd just signed the lease on a fifth pizzeria and was in serious talks to start franchising. I'd finally hired an executive assistant to manage the growing demands of my empire. And I'd started dating someone, a man who owned his own construction company and didn't expect a dime from me. In fact, he insisted on paying for our dinners, even when I offered. Through the family grapevine, I heard my parents had managed to hold on to the house, but it was tight. Ethan and Chloe still lived there. They were all working now, just trying to get by. Their lives had shrunk, while mine had expanded in ways I never imagined possible. Sure, there were moments I asked myself, was I too harsh? Sometimes I'd stare out the window at night and think about calling. Maybe starting over. But then I'd remember the parking lot, standing there in heels and a party dress, crying, phone in hand, while my mother laughed and told me I deserved to be humiliated. I'd remember the empty box and the $15,000 demand, and how it felt to be treated like an ATM instead of a daughter. And I'd remember how good it felt to finally put myself first. Maybe one day I'll forgive them, if they change, if they show real remorse, not for getting caught, but for how they treated me. But until then, I've got my freedom, my friends, my future, my peace. And the most important lesson I've ever learned, just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean they get to break your heart. And just because you can help someone doesn't mean you always should, especially if they never say thank you. Life lesson. Know when to stop giving. There comes a point in life when generosity turns into self-betrayal, especially when it's expected, not appreciated. Claire's story reminds us that love without boundaries isn't love, it's exploitation. For years, she supported her family financially, quietly covering their mortgage, rent, utilities, even groceries. But when she drew the line, she was met with cruelty, not gratitude. An empty box at her birthday party wasn't just a humiliation, it was a wake-up call. For many middle-aged Americans juggling aging parents, adult children, and careers, Claire's story cuts deep. It's about the emotional toll of being the strong one everyone relies on until you finally say no, and that no is where healing begins. The lesson? You're not selfish for protecting your peace. You're not heartless for refusing to fund toxic entitlement. Help should never be demanded. It should be appreciated. And family, real family, doesn't shame you for setting limits. Claire didn't just reclaim her money, she reclaimed her voice, her peace, and her power. We all deserve that moment, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Give with love, but not at the cost of your sanity. Sometimes the best gift you can give is your absence.